for some reason, I'm opening the show because Vicki's somewhere. She's doing some housekeeping, or I don't know. But anyway, I'm excited to be here. It sounds like I'm interviewing Vicki for the show. So, but I'm excited to be here. And I've seen a list of guests that have been on this show, and flattered and honored to be here. Oh, wait, here she is.
So here I am. So Steve Ferrone is done talking, you know, because for some reason, every time I take us live, Steve Ferrone's talking. And
Wow.
I don't know why that is.
That sounds like Steve to me. So it sounds like the Steve I know.
CJ, we met at Nicole Venables, getting our hair tressed right before I was going to Europe, and you were off somewhere too. And it was mad love at first sight.
It was.
Because we have all these mutual friends, and I'm so excited to hear a bit more about you. I've done my homework. I've learned a little bit, but so yeah, I have. And your career is crazy. You have played with so many of my heroes that. Okay, so it starts in Denver. I lived in Denver for a little while. So
interesting.
Are you a prodigy? What's the deal with you?
I guess I was. I mean, first piano lesson, 10 minutes into it, the teacher pulled my mom aside and into the other room and said, "This boy needs to be in a special school." This is.
And how old were you when this happened?
Probably 7.
Wow. And had you been fooling around on your own? Were you?
Yeah. There's a picture of my brother. And first of all, I should tell you, my father, who passed away 2 years ago, was one of the finest piano players you've ever heard in your life. And everybody says, yeah, my dad's, I'm telling you, Al Schmidt recorded my dad. He thought he was doing a charity. He thought he was doing a charity for my dad.
Yeah.
And I said, you're gonna be fucking crying in about 2 minutes. And Al started crying. He goes, your dad's one of the best piano. He goes, I love you, but you're not a hair on your dad's ass. So my dad was fabulous.
Yeah, you can change.
See, now it's doing it again.
We're being invaded by Steve Ferrone. He's such an attention, he has to have what is that?
See, he's a.
That's all right. I'll keep telling the story. So my father was an amazing piano player. He was the best player in the state when he was 18. I was born when he was 20, I believe.
Was your father a professional?
Oh yeah. He played all over. And my father was an orphan, so we don't know his lineage. But my mother's side is all music, all the way back, piano players. So both sides had music.
Wow.
And it was a very kind of shining kind of thing. My great grandmother played piano in the same church for 75 years. She would get in her buggy and then ride cross country in Michigan and stay overnight at somebody's house, get up in the morning, give a piano lesson, ride 3 or 4 hours to the next house, stay overnight, give a piano lesson. And then she'd get back on Saturday, and that'd be the day.
Wait, she was literally riding in a buggy?
Yeah, with horse and buggy. Yeah, my great grandma. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, this probably would have been in the 20s,
What? And your mom was a pianist as well?
She plays. She was an accordionist, but it was all musicians all the way back on both sides. Now, my parents split when I was 4. We lived in Denver. I don't want to go too long on this, but we lived in Denver, and I had I cried for the first 8 months of my life, and I was turning blue. They didn't know I had a heart defect. Oh. So the only hospital they performed the surgery was back in Michigan, where they had come from, coincidentally. So we moved back there to get my heart surgery, which they didn't think I would make it through. It was experimental then. And
wow.
8 months old, I got it fixed, and no problems there. I have no heart problems. Everything's fine now. But that was kind of a weird start,
Hell yeah.
Weird start there. So my parents got divorced when I was 4. My father moved about an hour away above a nightclub. So I started hanging out every other weekend with my father above this jazz nightclub with all the cats coming upstairs. And I'm 4 years old, and I'm just watching the way they talk to each other. So even more than the music, because that was already in my DNA, because there were records spinning all the time at both households.
And what kind of music are your parents listening
Everything. I mean, my mom was more eclectic than my dad, actually. She listened to Ray Charles and Charlie Pride, and there was some choir stuff, folk stuff. I mean, when I did A Mighty Wind, I knew exactly what to do because I grew up hearing that in the house, you know.
Oh my God.
But my dad was pretty straight jazz, you know. This would have been 1962, and bebop was really hitting hard, and Miles was doing great stuff. So anyway,
and was jazz your thing when you started?
No.
No.
I got started with the funny old duck and you know, those stupid stuff they teach you in piano lessons. I was really bored. It wasn't until I started smoking weed that I figured out I got to learn some Rolling Stones, Angie, and Long Cool Woman with the Black Dress. And I started learning stuff by ear. Then I started studying classical. And I think the first year I was the first one on the recital book. And then the second year I was on the first one on the second page. And then third year I was the last guy every year. So I did that for about 5 years. Anyway, but I wanted to tell you about going to visit my dad.
Right.
He would go downstairs to play a set with his trio, the Paul Vanston trio. And he just locked me in the apartment. Like if you did that today, there'd be a helicopter and, you know, child services and SWAT team outfits, right? You know what I'm saying?
He locked you in the apartment?
Yeah. But I just laid on the floor listening. I just was inhaling all that music. Then the break would happen. Boom, the door would open. All the cats would come in and hang out. And I just would look up, and I loved the way they talked to each other. I saw the way insurance guys talk to each other, business guys, but he's like, "Hey, baby, yo, cat, how you been?" "Yeah, all right." I'm like, these guys are different than everybody else, you know? And Stan Kenton used to love my dad's playing. He was a legendary big band leader. And he had this shock of white hair. On break, Stan Kenton shows up with his band guys. They had played a gig. They're in their like beautiful suits and everything. And I looked at him and I looked over, and there's the album sitting there with his picture. And I'm looking back and forth going, this is the first celebrity I've ever seen, you know. And then I watched them. I thought, wait, this is bullshit. If these guys are so successful, why can't they afford their own cigarette? I was 4 years old and they're smoking weed. I'm watching them smoke weed, going, this is bullshit. So one guy brought a brick of weed, and back then it was like heroin. My dad freaked out. He said, "Put that away." He goes, "Where should I put it?" He goes, "Put it in the oven. That's where the cops will never look there." So they go down to play the set, lock me in the apartment. They're playing in between songs. Yeah, there was a song by Dizzy Gillespie called Con Alma. We're going to do something now by Bill Up. And the drummer goes, "Somebody's smoking pot in the club." My dad goes, "Nobody would smoke pot, Derek." And they're scanning the club. They don't say anything. Then my dad goes, "Oh, fuck." He runs upstairs, opens the apartment. It's completely covered in white. I've turned the oven on. I've burned up a pound of weed. And he looks down. I'm 4 years old, and I'm looking up going, "Hi, Dad." I'm completely stoned out of my brains at 4 years old. So that's the setup, basically. Everything else makes sense from there. So that's my get out of jail free card.
Hysterical. So the first time you get high, do you get high with your dad or no?
No. I started, you know, they put me ahead a year in school, and school was still boring. It was so boring. It was so slow. First day of trig, it's like, I got that. And then we studied it for 9 months. It was just awful. Everything was so rudimentary to me. And so I started skipping school and playing records, going back home and spinning, listening to music, getting high and listening to music. And that was the whole, you know, I inhaled music for a good, you know, 7 or 8 years of the best music that's ever been created. I mean, this would have been, you know, 69 through 1980, you know. Think about all that music, you know, Jethro Tull and Elton John and Earth, Wind and Fire and Cat Stevens and Bill Withers and Emerson, Lake and Palmer. And yes, and I lost you. I'm not hearing you.
Sorry, I hit the thing by mistake. Yeah. I'm older than you, so I got to hear all those guys play in their heyday at the Fillmore East.
I don't know if you're older than me. I'm 65, so.
Oh, we're okay. So I'm 67, but so right
All
in
right.
there kind. But I was like 13, 14 going to the Fillmore East. I don't know if those guys were coming to Denver. Were you going to
No.
concerts when you? No.
No. I lived in Michigan. It was like the hinterland. So, but by the way, we looked fabulous.
We look
Anyway.
so CJ, so what do you want to do with it? So you want to be a musician right away.
Totally.
That's the thing.
Totally.
So and what do you think when you're a little, what do you want to do?
You know, I really didn't know. I just know that, and this is, I got to tell this story. So I got a scholarship, but to Michigan State University, I found a way to get in there. It was just a slight scholarship. It wasn't completely paid for, but it would have been a classical scholarship. And I didn't want to play dead people's music. That was the last thing I wanted to do. I didn't want to do it. And my dad was really pushing me to do it. My dad didn't even want me to be a musician because he knew how hard it was. And so that summer, I snuck into a club, and I was 17 when I graduated. I snuck into a club and I saw mostly Black horn band called Sunquest.
Horn band?
A horn band, funk band.
I thought you said horn band.
A horn band. Well, that comes later. I'll tell you about that. And they just blew me away. The lead singer was built like a linebacker. He was gorgeous and sang like a bird, and it was just amazing. And I went and bought after that all the funk records I could find and started schooling on funk on my Fender Rhodes, and got a Mutron with a wah-wah sound and everything. And later that summer, I'm supposed to go to college. I'm playing this club with my little jazz trio, and I look out, and there's that singer in the back of the bar, only Black guy in the bar. I grew up in a pretty much all-white town. And there's that guy listening. I thought, oh yeah, watch this shit. And I clicked on my Mutron, did a whole solo and everything. I got done. He's gone. I thought, how could he walk out on this performance? I can't believe it. So I got pissed off, and I finished the set and walked off the stage. He's standing right there, and he puts his finger in my chest and he says, "Y'all playing with us now."
Wow.
So I blew off college and got on a yellow school bus with a 10-piece, Black funk band. And there were two Jeffs in the band.
Didn't you look fine?
And I was probably 120 pounds and looked like I was 13 years old,
Wow.
And anyway, there were two Jeffs in the band. And my name is actually Jeffrey. So what do we do?
CJ.
So AJ, there was a race driver named AJ Foyt back then. And this guy was the worst driver in the world. So he's got to be AJ. BJ was Black Jeff. CJ, ladies and gentlemen, Caucasian Jeff.
Caucasian.
That's what it stands for.
Oh my God, that's hysterical. Now, is it true? I think you have big C, little J. Do you do it that way? I really like it. Oh, you don't? No, that's a fallacy.
That's what, when I first signed up for Facebook, it wouldn't let you put two capitals. So that's all that is. That was that long ago.
I think it's kind of, well,
maybe I'll go with that.
I think it's kind of cool, actually.
But anyway,
you'll always be Caucasian Jeff to me now.
It's fine with me. I wear it as a badge of honor. I mean, what I learned in that band with those guys, and then BJ was a music aficionado. He turned me on to Gil Scott-Heron and Frankie Beverly and the Bar-Kays and Funkadelic and Earth, Wind and Fire and Kool and the Gang and all that stuff. And of course, every night we play that funky music, White Boy. They put the spotlight on me. I'd do my White Boy solo. It was amazing. There was sometimes where I was the only white guy in the club, and I grew up in an all-white town. So this was just the perfect indoctrination.
Okay, now I'm thinking since you lived in Michigan and you loved Earth, Wind and Fire, that you must have known Allie Willis. Did you know Allie?
Mm-mm.
You didn't know Allie.
I never, ever met her.
Wow.
Isn't that bizarre?
That is real, because she would have loved you. I mean, and she did so much to raise money for Detroit and for Michigan, the music scene there. And
I wasn't aware of all that until towards the end. And so many friends of mine used to go to her house, that crazy house of hers.
Oh, yeah.
And I just missed out, It's
Allie
she's
brought
amazing.
a few of the musicians from Earth, Wind and Fire, Larry Dunn and stuff, and they played in my living room about 12
Wow.
years ago. Yeah, that
Yeah, I
was
was a
pretty
big Larry Dunn fan.
amazing.
But so anyway, I
Yeah.
kind of became a local, I was kind of like the keyboard player in my little area there. And I left that band, got in another band, left that band, got in another band, left that band, got in another band. And
Well, how were your parents with you dropping out of school?
So, and by the way, I sold the car my dad got me for graduation and bought a mini Moog with it. And he disowned me.
What?
He kicked me out. Yep.
Now, I would have thought of all people, he would have understood this.
You think that? What do you think I thought? And by the way, I'm not throwing him under the bus, because my dad, he would stand up and do a toast, and he'd say, this kid was always right and I was wrong. And, he's apologized so many times publicly to people. And I ended up being like, he was so proud of me.
He lived,
what I did.
He lived to see you have a lot of success. So.
Oh, he sure did. Oh, he saw me at Carnegie Hall and, and all sorts of stuff. Yeah, it was great. So, but it was tough at the moment because he was my hero. And here was the guy telling me.
And so he disowned you because he wanted you to go to college? Was that the thing? Yeah.
He wanted me to get a regular job with a pension, 401k. It's like,
but did he have a regular job?
Oh, no. So he married the local weather lady.
Oh.
Up in Saginaw, Michigan, after he divorced my mom. She had 4 kids. So there's my brother and I and 4 kids. That's the end of his music career.
Oh.
I don't know what he was thinking. It was a wonderful family, and I'm glad I got to meet him and everything, but that was the end of his music career. I mean, so he got a job at GM in this new field called data processing.
Wow.
Right? And quickly rose to the absolute top to become the top programmer at GM.
Wow.
And ended up being kidnapped out of GM by a guy that founded a company called EDS, Russ Kunkel. He saw what my dad did immediately. And my dad became the superstar computer programmer, ended up becoming the CEO of EDS Malaysia, moving over there. So what's weird is I'm really deep into computer, programming and synthesizers. Which is
and everything. That's very good for a keyboardist to have that.
To have that math kind of thing. So I really took my dad's 2 skills and went right down the middle. So it was a perfect setup.
How long did it take you to have success that he respected?
So that's what I was going to get to. So we went to Chicago to make a record with this band. Mm-hmm. And Ronnie Hernandez and Sweet Energy, ladies and gentlemen. Tip your bartenders and waitresses. And remember, motel spelled backwards is let 'em. Anyway, it was so cheesy. So much fun, though. Anyway, we went to the studio where the band Styx was recording, and that was, a big deal.
Yeah.
And our engineer was Styx's producer. So we cut basic tracks, I think, for 4 days, and then we had 4 days for overdubs, for synth overdubs and stuff. So I did the whole album in one day. I overdubbed the whole album one day. The guy came out and he goes, "Where the hell did you learn how to be so good at this?" And I said, "This is my first time in a recording studio."
Wow.
I'd never been with a band and overdubbed, And he said, "Okay, you got to move to Chicago." And so he called me about 8 months later and he said, "There's an opening in this rock band there." And I went down there. There must have been 40 guys auditioning for this band. And I would think I was number 17. I got done and they said, "The audition is over." I got the gig, moved to Chicago. We recorded some songs in a studio that during the day was a jingle studio. And I got to see what these guys are doing. I was watching these studio musicians. And I was a huge Toto fan. Like those musicians that was it for me. Luke and Paige and Steve Porcaro and Jeff Porcaro.
I just met Steve on Saturday night. What a lovely man he is. I love him. I love him.
Maniac. Unbelievable. Nobody like him. And that's when I knew I've got to be a studio musician. I don't want to be in a rock band. I want to be a studio musician. And, they said, "Yeah, kid, there's like 35 keyboard players here. You don't have a chance." Within, I think, a year and a half, I was the number one guy there. Not trying to brag, but that's the truth. And I was.
I
number
know
one
you
guy
know
there
all
for
my friends. Like
7
Lee
years there.
Sklar, I saw the pictures
God.
of you and Lee. I love Lee, and I'm sure you have to know Will Lee if you were doing all this.
Oh, he's a
session
dear.
work.
I love him.
Okay, I've known
I
Will
love
for
him.
40 years. and-
Such a total sweetheart. And you can't find a better musician on the planet that's done everything. I saw him with the Brecker Brothers when I was 18.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
he's a dear, dear friend. Both those guys are dear brothers. But
So you break into session work. How old are you when this is going on?
22, 23.
Your father has to be proud of that. He has to.
So that's what I was getting to.
Yeah.
So it gets to, I'm doing 5 or 6 sessions a day. I've got 2 keyboard rigs. I've
my
got a cartage guy, and I'm playing at night. Also got a gig at night with a
So what's your gig?
12-piece band.
Yeah, what kind of music are you playing?
You mean at night?
Yeah.
It was this amazing club. It was the most beautiful nightclub you've ever seen. There's a guy named Rich Melman who owns restaurants all over the world. And he built this place called Rupert's 33 Club. And he put together, he hired a musical director to put together a 12-piece band. And it was every kind of music you can imagine. There were 6 singers. So
Wow.
we go through, we do Chaka Khan, we do Dolly Parton, we do. So during the day, I'm, at 7 in the morning, I'm doing a country session. At 10, I'm with the Chicago Symphony. At 12, I'm reading fly spec, solo piano. At 3 o'clock, I'm doing a sound design, and this went on and on. Go home, eat some food, get in the car, and then go play on a 500 chart book. And I did this.
Are you writing any music yet, CJ?
At night I did, yeah, but I didn't know enough to be a songwriter. I just enjoyed writing.
And you're not really composing yet, or you're starting to, or?
I was always composing, yeah.
Mhm.
I was, even when I was 17, I was writing stuff. But anyway, I started making really good money back there. Yeah. And the problem back then is making a lot of money in about 1985 when you're, yeah.
Yeah.
So it became a wild world. And it got to the point where I just thought, because I got really good at it. I mean, I could read anything. I could play anything on piano or whatever, but I also was programming my ass off because I'd stay up all night and learned all the, I got every synthesizer when it first came out. I was there when the first DX7 came out.
Are you playing accordion also? I think I've seen a picture of you.
No, that's another story. I learned,
Okay.
I was forced to learn that for a Joe Cocker song when I went on tour with him in 94.
Oh, we're going to talk about that.
Yeah. So anyway, I'll buzz through this. I started making all this money and every session's an hour long. So you're burning. I got so fast. And I decided, I didn't get this good to make the sound of shrimp flying through the air for Red Lobster. There's got to be something more. And my mentor there was a guy named Dick Marx, and he was the king of jingle producers, the undisputed number one. His son was Richard Marx. And his son had already made a record in LA. And he says, you got to go out to LA. And I said, I want to go make records. And he goes, you got to go out and work with my son. And so he called his son and said, you got to work with this guy, CJ. And he said, Dad, I'm here in LA. There's 1,000 keyboard players. I don't need this guy. And he says, well, I want you to do something with him. So I met Richard and he played me a cassette. He says, I got this song. It's not going to go on my record. I might use it for a movie soundtrack someday, but it's definitely not going on my record. And I listened to it and I said, don't give this to anyone else. You got to promise. I know exactly what to do with this song. So I made a demo. He put a vocal on it.
Is this the first producing you're doing?
No, I didn't produce this. I was just an arranger.
Arranger. Okay.
Yeah. So he didn't want to put it on the record, but the producer, David Cole, played it for some of the record company guys, and they freaked out. What are you talking? This is your single, because that's not even going on my record. Everyone, and finally, Richard put it on the record, and it was Right Here Waiting, which was his biggest song ever. That was the first.
He was not even going to put it on his record.
Yeah. He was trying, he had a really rock sound. And that song, I mean, what you hear on that song is basically almost all me. There's a nylon guitar solo in the middle, but it's my demo.
Wow.
It's my demo. And so the record company, they're thinking we're going to put big drums on it and everything. And Richard's like, no, it's going to stay just like this. Wow. So the fact that it had no drums, it really went against the grain of everything that was on the radio, and it created kind of a sound that I've heard people steal a lot, through the years. But anyway, that was the first song I did in LA. And all of a sudden I'd pick up the phone before caller ID. Hi, my name's Phil Ramone. Hi, my name's Desmond Child. Hi, my name's someone. Now I'm doing sessions in LA and walk in to A&M and there's Luke sitting there and there's Sklar, and this would have been 89,
Wow.
And so I ended up arranging the entire record, Richard's entire record. So that was my gateway into, and then during that record, we did a song, Richard wrote a song for Luke, and that I ended up doing some arranging on that, I believe. And that's when I met Luke, and I was off and running.
Okay, so I don't even know in your list of credits where to start, like how these relationships started. Prince. Okay, Prince, how did that happen?
Okay, Bobby Colombi, he was the drummer in Blood, Sweat, and Tears, and he worked at Sony at the time. They had an artist named Martika, and it was her second album. And they had a song that Prince kind of bailed on, and I don't know what happened. Something got screwed up, and they were looking for someone to kind of do something around this track he'd done, a beautiful track. And I guess they tried, I don't know, 9, 10, 11 guys, and Prince wasn't happy with anything. And I did it, and he flipped, and so did Martika. And this is the way I remember it, or that I've heard it, because I never met Prince during this whole thing. So I did this whole orchestral thing and this whole spacey orchestral outro. It must go for 2 minutes after the song. I just kept going. I thought they're never going to use this. Well, the whole thing ended up on the record.
Wow.
So Prince contacted me again. There's another song on the record. Do you play B3? And it's like one of my favorite things to do is play B3. So I put this B3, soulful B3 organ, and he doesn't know my history with, CJ. And he wrote me an email that I lost. I don't know where it is. I used to have it on my wall. He said, "Hey, brother, that's the best organ I've heard since Sly and the Family Stone."
Oh.
And I wrote back, "Hey, brother, just so you know, I'm a skinny white boy." So that's kind of my Prince story. That's
wow.
Never got to meet him, but,
wow,
but he was a fan, Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Okay, so Barbra Streisand, that's an interesting credit.
That's interesting. That was another one. It was on Back to Broadway, and they had a few piano players had played this track, and it was Foster producing, Humberto Gatica engineering, and Barbara over at, God, what was the studio? I can't remember. Anyway, I walked in, a pretty intimidating situation to walk in, but I was so, but I never got intimidated at that stuff. I was pretty cocky. Not cocky, I was just confident. I knew I could pull it off. So I walked in and they had the chart there, and they had a big screen or TV back then sitting next to the piano. And I said, "What's this?" They said, "Oh, that's a conductor." So they hit play, and I think I was the 7th guy on that one. And I started playing, and this conductor's doing this theatrical conducting. He's waving his arms everywhere. And I said, "Stop, stop, stop. Turn that fucking thing off, please." They're like, "Well, how are you going to know where to play?" I said, "Turn her up. I want to hear her breathe in my ear." And I looked back, and she's like, "Oh."
Oh my God.
And I got the gig. I aced it. Got the gig. Ended up playing another song, I believe, on that record. And she called me in to work on Mirror Has Two Faces. I did some cues for that with Marvin Hamlish, and a couple other things with her. Yeah.
And it sounds like you had a nice relationship with her. I
did.
There's more to this story.
Well, she's very demanding, and let's just say I just didn't feel like that was my way of working, I had done enough of that. A lot of the jingle producers were they'd come up through that Toscanini kind of thing, the fire and brimstone. And I just had enough of that. And she's not mean or anything like that. She's just very demanding. And I don't know. It wasn't my cup of tea, but she sang so great, amazing. I'm so glad I worked with her. And very sweet. And, but we just never worked together again. But, then you work with somebody like Dolly Pardon.
Yeah.
Well, I spent 8 months working with Dolly, and that was crazy. That was one of the craziest experiences in my life. I was supposed to do 2 songs on her record. And when I met her, I had my little DAT. She walked into the studio. I walked in with a DAT. I did take a breath before that, like, holy shit. And then I looked down at the DAT and I thought, wait a minute. They're all here to hear my work. I'm the one with the power.
Wow.
So I did an attitude shift, walked in, I said, put that on. And I said, do you like it loud? She goes, hell yeah. And I grabbed her chair and I pulled it right up next to me. And before the first verse was done, her arm is on my forearm. And I looked over and she's got tears in her eyes. Done. It was over. And she said, gets done. She goes, I want this MF to play on my whole damn record. I want him to do my whole record. They said, well, we've got so-and-so. You didn't hear what I said. I want this MF to do my whole damn record. And we ended up, everybody left. And so we started talking. I said, well, let's record something. She goes, well, like what? I said, well, I wrote charts for everything. She goes, you didn't even know you'd be working. I said, I wrote charts for everything, Dolly, just in case. There's a piano vocal one.
Wow.
It was called Blue Me. It was a blues song. And I said, let's go do that right now. So they put her out in the booth. I went to the piano and we started playing. And she says, stop the tape. What? She goes, I want to be right here next to CJ. And she puts the mic I could reach out with my right hand and touch her. And they said, well, there'll be leakage. She goes, you didn't hear what I said? Get the hell out of here. Hit record. And one take. And we were looking at each other's eyes, and it was just instant connection, we were so connected. It was crazy. So I
love this.
It was for a movie called Straight Talk that we worked on, and we made an album that went with it, and we did the soundtrack, and we did some traveling. And
I was going to say, who did you travel with? So this was a lot of studio work. I know you were out with Tina and with Joe Cocker, right?
My first one was with, interestingly enough, I just saw the Immediate Family movie. Have you heard about that?
I saw it when it was just
it's
before
amazing.
it was.
It's amazing.
It's the best music doc I think there is.
It's amazing.
Fantastic. Yes.
And Denny Tedesco is a dear friend of mine. Actually, we have a project going right now with a TV show we're working on to pitch. And that's fantastic. Kind of my main focus right now is that. I'm working for myself now. I've spent so much time working for everyone else. But anyway, when I had done Right Here Waiting, we did a showcase at the Roxy. And at sound check, the sound guy comes up, because my thing is, I can play, lots of guys can play. My sounds are my sounds. Mm-hmm. I put them up against anything. That I'm very into my sounds and the way they fit with the track and everything. And the guy came up and he goes, I've never heard sounds like this in my life. He goes, who the hell are you? I said, I'm CJ and I've just moved to town. He goes, my boss would love you. I said, who's your boss? He said, Don Henley. And I'm like, oh shit. And End of the Innocents had just come out. And he goes, he's auditioning keyboard players for his tour. And I thought, this is it. I just did Right Here Waiting. Now I'm going to go tour with Don Henley. This is perfect. Went to the audition, and I think there were 20 some guys. Back to this thing again. Got a call back. Went back again. Got called back again. And it came down to, I think, 5 of us. And we played End of the Innocents, the Bruce Hornsby track. And the last audition, Don goes, you ready, CJ? I said, yeah. And he goes, count it off. And somebody taps me on the shoulder. Hornsby's standing behind me. And the drummer's counting the song up. And I just flipped him the bird. And I just thought, I'm going to shove this, how dare you stand behind me while I audition? And I just I played it like so good. It was amazing. I got the gig. So management called. They said, you've got the gig for the Don Henley tour. One thing, Don wants you to shave your beard. So did you say that again?
That's odd. Yeah.
Wants me to shave my beard. Yeah, he wants you to shave your beard. I said, well, yeah, I'm not going to shave my beard because somebody asked me to. I'm not shaving my beard. They said, well, it's a prerequisite to the gig. So, well, no, I'm not shaving my beard. And I hung up. I knew they would call back. No, they didn't. I didn't get the gig because I wouldn't shave my beard. I never understood what that was. So a couple of weeks later, Katey Segal from Married with Children. Yeah. Katey, and by the way, now I'm basically suicidal. I'm like, my career's over. I sabotaged my career. All I had to do was shave my beard.
Were you regretting that you said no?
At that point, I was.
Okay.
Let me finish the story.
Okay.
A couple of weeks later, Katey Segal from Married with Children, who's a fabulous singer and a fabulous person also, is at a party, and Don Henley's there. And she says, he asked her how she's doing. She says, I'm putting a band together and I've lost my keyboard player, musical director guy. I need somebody. You know somebody? He goes, I know somebody really good. He's great, but he's got an ugly fucking beard. So Katey Segal calls me, right? And she sends me, back then it was a cassette. This would have been, again, 89. And I wrote charts for all, 20 songs. I demoed everything. I made demos of I think the top 6 one that she wanted to start rehearsals with. And she said, and I wrote charts, and she said, I'm sending my drummer over to meet with you. It's okay. I had an office at Sunset Sound at that time. So I opened, knock at the door, I opened the door. Who's standing there? I go, are you Russ Kunkel? He goes, yes, I am. Holy shit, you're in the, what the, he comes in and sits down. Oh my God, what a treat this is going to be. So he goes, what do we got? I said, well, let me play this. I hit play on this demo. It gets about 1 minute in and Russ goes, stop. I go, what's wrong? He says, stop. I go, what's wrong? He goes, nothing's wrong, but what am I listening to? I said, well, this is demo. He goes, who did this? I said, I did. Who did the drums? I said, I programmed those. Who did the bass? I did the bass. I said, Russ, that's all me. I did all that. You did all what I'm listening to. I go, yeah. He goes, who wrote these charts? I said, I did. He goes, okay, I got 2 guys I want to introduce you to. You got to be kidding me. Christopher Guest.
Russ is the one who introduced you to
into Spinal Tap. That's how I got the Spinal Tap gig.
Wow.
And ended up scoring all Chris's movies. And the other one was Greg Ladani, Toto's producer. So I shaved my beard. I end up on this probably not too fun tours. I love Don Henley, but he's pretty much a stickler. You got to play the same thing every night. And that I probably would have lasted 2 weeks on that tour. And for some reason, my intuition told me if someone's going to ask you to shave your beard, they're going to ask you to do something else that you don't want to do,
Interesting.
You know what I mean? So I followed my intuition. I was actually right. And it ended up setting this whole chain of events. And that's what I did. Did a one-nighter with Spinal Tap with Russ playing drums. And I just said, no one is ever going to play keyboards for this band ever again, except me. And sure enough, the band got inspired and we started sounding good. And I was creating all these sounds and they said, let's make a record. So 92, we made Break Like the Wind. And that's when I met Danny Korchmar. Danny produced a track on that. That's when I met T-Bone Burnett. That's when I met a lot of guys on that. And then anyway, that became my first tour. We did a world tour with Spinal Tap. And then I started working with Greg Ladani, and that would have been 93. And the engineer, this was at Steve Vai's studio. The engineer there was friends with a guy named Chris Lord-Alge. And he said, man, you got to meet my friend, Chris Lord-Alge. You guys have just hit it off. You guys hit it off. And I got a call from Chris. He's working with Joe Cocker, and he needs someone to come over and just find out keys. Just find out keys. That's all they want me for. Well, I sit and I'm going through the song. I go, wait a minute, why don't we do this re-intro? Do 2 bars and let's cut this off. And why don't we do a little key change here? And then I start doing these things and I find the keys. And we recorded these, just piano and vocal. And Joe's like, okay, I want that guy. So I ended up arranging Joe's record in 1994. And Joe asked me to go on the road. So did 43 countries with Joe.
Wow.
You know, I thought I was going to lose all my studio work, but I didn't give a shit. And it was really a first class tour. It was great hotels.
I was going to say, what was he like? Was he fucked up all the time? How was he to tour with?
There were moments, and Joe would drink, and there were bad nights. You know, there were bad times, and sometimes we got the blame for that because we hung out with him after the show and he wouldn't stop. But no, especially in the studio, he was always there, always right on. One of the most phenomenal musicians I've ever worked with. And Joe and I had a link together that was just, I'd see him sagging a little bit on stage, you know, after like playing 6 nights straight. And I could send shit up his spine. I'd see him perk up, and, you know, we had a thing. I mean, he'd introduce the band. He'd say on bass, da-da-da, on drums, da-da-da, on guitar, da-da-da. And then he'd go, and on keyboards, ladies and gentlemen, the one, the only, the inimitable, the irreplaceable Mr. C.J. Vanston. I mean, it was such an honor. He really loved me, and we had a huge connection. And we went on to work on a bunch of more records from there. And I ended up producing him in 2004, and did that tour also with him. And he had stopped drinking by then.
Wow.
Yeah, just a dear man.
And so amidst all these playing and recording, you're doing pretty much all of Christopher Guest's movies, right? You're scoring them.
Yeah, that started in, God, I think 93. So that we did the Cocker tour. Then I got back, and there's Waiting for Guffman, you know. You know, I told Chris, you're directing. I said, you're directing a movie. I got to do the music. He goes, you do that? I'm like, are you kidding? Well, I'd never scored a movie.
So you just, okay. So you just decided you could do that. My beau did the same thing. Just said, oh yeah, I can do that. And just did it.
Well, everything I play all the time, people go, it always sounds like a film score when you play. So I knew I could do it. And I was pretty much a scholar of film. And what's interesting, since I was a latchkey kid, get home from elementary school, and parents wouldn't be back for 2 or 3 hours because they were still working. It was the golden age of TV and comedy. And I just grew up in all that comedy, Mad Magazine, National Lampoon Magazine, all that comedy. I mean, I became a scholar of comedy. I never thought it would be something I'd use later. Well, all of a sudden I land in the epicenter of comedy. There couldn't be a bigger epicenter of comedy than being with that troupe. Matter of fact, when I was 13, and that, you know, my town I grew up in was a jock. You know, I didn't fit in at all. I mean, I was skinny and too small for sports, and I was wearing army pants and smoking weed and big long hair. And I walked by the local store there, and there was a National Lampoon magazine. Do you remember the one that had the dog on the front, and they had the gun to the dog? And it said, buy this magazine or we shoot the dog. And I went, what the hell is this? So I bought it, and I went right to the park. I rode my bike to the park, and I thumbing through it, and I found this article. I was reading it going, oh my God, whoever wrote this, there's somebody as fucked up as I am. This is amazing. You know, I love this. I got to find out who this is. I get to the end of the article. I was 13. The writer of the article was Christopher Guest.
Oh, wow.
So now here, Destiny, don't shave the beard. Now I'm scoring his movies, touring with Spinal Tap. Are you kidding me?
Unbelievable.
There couldn't be anything better than that. Nothing better. And working with this troupe of comedians on these shows, you know.
Fred Willard was a friend of mine, and Ed Begley is a friend of mine. And so
what a
many people.
sweetheart.
Yes.
Ed's just, there's nobody better, nobody smarter than Ed.
Yeah.
You know, all of them, we became dear friends, all of us. We just became like a family. And Eugene, we did one pilot called DOA, and I never knew what happened to it. And Chris and Eugene wrote it, and I said, Gene, you know, whatever happened to DOA? DOA. Well, wow, that was a while ago. It wasn't funny.
Wow.
And Catherine, you know, she's like a
Oh
sister
my
to me.
God, is
She's
she
like a
brilliant.
sister, and she's so fucking talented. And Jane, you know, we keep in touch all the time. I saw Michael Hitchcock the other night, and you know, we're still a pretty tight knit family. It's a pretty exclusive club to be part of. And Parker, and you know, I could keep going on. Jennifer Coolidge, we keep in touch. She's
my
great.
Lord.
And look at her career; she's doing amazing. You know.
Wow, amazing what's going on with her. So is
And
there
so one thing I just wanted to
Yeah.
say, it's so weird because this
I
is
love
just
that.
a side gig for me. This isn't really what I do, you know, but it became kind of a thing, you know, it became a thing. I didn't know, it was just a yuck for me, but it became a thing, you know.
And is there, and then you and Harry Shearer did this whole other thing.
We did the Derek Small solo album about 4 years ago. And that was huge with full orchestra. And it was the if somebody said, what do you do? I would just go play that record. You know, I mean, we worked with Donald Fagen on that record. We worked with Steve Vai, Joe Satriani, Larry Carlton, the Snarky Puppy Horns, on and on and on. That was an incredible project. And we did 3 live concerts with orchestra, with my parts that I wrote for orchestra, and COVID hit.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, because of COVID, I got to have Judith and Harry on my show at different times.
Oh, they're fabulous. Just
And-
had dinner with them the other night.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
amazing.
Dear people.
You know, I was watching, oh God, now I'm spacing on it. Oh, the moon, the Apollo 13. Yeah, Harry plays a,
No, you're talking about
not Apollo 13.
the right stuff. The right stuff.
The
is what
right
you're talking
stuff.
about. Yeah.
And Harry's like this young, I mean, it must have been his first movie or something. He's like a kid in that movie. Yeah, playing the reporter. Amazing.
It's interesting because I've got my side thing is I'm deep into aerospace and the whole Apollo missions and airplanes. I flew airplanes for a while, and it's an interesting side thing. Yeah.
So before we go back to the music, so do you have time for TV? Have you been binging during the pandemic? Did you binge anything?
Not really.
You don't.
I really just
Well, because Christopher's wife is doing some pretty amazing work. She's
she's unbelievable. She's a force of nature. Yeah. I didn't know she was in The Bear.
Oh my God. One episode that will rip your kishkas out. She's going to win an Emmy for it.
Oh my God. She's a force of nature. I've known her for, 34 years or something now. She's incredible.
Yeah, it's
just an amazing woman. Amazing woman.
She certainly is. All right, so let's go back to your discography here. So I just saw last week, we went and saw Ringo and the All Stars, and had never done it. How fun is that? Met Ringo in London recently. That was such a gas. And Luke is there, and they're all there. So
and Greg Bissonette, dear friend.
He is a monster. And when he and Ringo go,
it's the best.
Stick for stick.
Yep.
That was absolutely crazy.
And you will never meet a more dear human being in all your travels. And by the way, Michigan boy. So, anyway, go ahead.
So how did your Ringo, your Beatles experience, how did that happen? How did you come to work with Ringo?
Phil Ramone called me, I told you, and he called me to work with a band called Boy Meets Girl. Mm-hmm. They had a huge hit, and we did this amazing record. And by the way, George Merrill is George and Shannon, the duo, Boy Meets Girl. George is a great keyboard player. And Phil goes, I got to have my guy on this. And his name's CJ. They're like, we don't need a keyboard player. Phil's like, I got to have my guy. So it was kind of weird. I was kind of not wanted at the beginning, but once they heard what I was doing, we made this great, incredible record, just monstrous, one of the best things I've ever done. And the A&R guy, I remember his name, Bob Buziak, got fired, and they shelved the record, and it was never released.
Oh,
one of those stupid records. And this, we were talking before we went on the air about how I just get so pissed off at the business and the ignorance, and it's so fear-based that it drives me crazy. I'm not very tolerant of it. I probably would have had a lot more success if I was able to shut my mouth, but it just drives me nuts when I see injustice like this over such petty stuff. You know, nobody wants to take responsibility, because if a record isn't a success, it's on them. And that's what everybody did in the 60s and 70s. DJ put this on. This is great. This is what I believe in. But such chicken shit stuff. The record company was too chicken to put it out. And my God, George and Shannon put their lives, and Phil, into this record, and me, and no one ever heard it. So anyway, Phil said, I'm going to make it up to you. You're going to work on everything I do. So we did David Cassidy after that. That was an incredible experience. And so then he says, I got something. I got 2 songs with Ringo I want to do. So I kind of searched my head. Who is Ringo? What is he? What do I want to make him? And I've decided he's like the court gesture, the traveling circus kind of thing. And I made this track that was so cool. It was really, really cool. And so he brought Ringo in. Ringo walks in, and Ringo loved it. Ringo just loved both the things I did. So we decided to put a little scratch vocal on it and work on it. And Phil walks up and he goes, I just got a phone call. I have to leave. I got to leave for an hour. I'm leaving you with Ringo. I go, okay, don't worry about it. He goes, whatever you do, don't fucking ask him about the Beatles. I said, Phil, I'm not going to go, what was it like back, no way. Jesus, give me a break. Get out of here. Go. So we worked for like 15 minutes, and I said, what do you think of the track? He goes, oh, I think it sounds fine to me, I don't know, what do you want to do? I said, I don't know, what do you want to do? He goes, you want to hear some good Beatles stories? And I go, yeah. So he starts off and he says,
stop.
Oh, unbelievable. So he told me they'd come out of like the Riot House, the Hyatt, on Sunset, and they'd run to the limo. And the first thing, the limo would speed off. And the first thing they'd do would be to empty their pockets to show what was shoved in their pockets. And it's nude Polaroids and drugs and phone numbers. And they'd compare all that, joints and everything. And he goes, yeah, we used to wear these jackets that had a little neighbor. I said, Ringo, I know the jackets, okay? You don't have to over-explain here. Don't worry about it. So we kept going and talking, kept talking stories. And then it got to, I said, so man, so what happens when John gets killed? What happened? He goes, oh, he was my brother. I mean, he got into the other stuff. I don't want to repeat some of the stuff he told me, very, very deep stuff. But John is deep, but it's stuff that's more personal. But he said, I miss him every day. And I said, okay. So now you walk on stage and you're the guy, and the ladies and gentlemen, Ringo Starr, and you walk out. What's that now? And he goes, the love. It's just, his lip starts quivering. It's just sometimes it's too much. And so I grab him, I'm hugging him.
Oh.
The door opens and Phil Ramone walks in. And he looks at me like, I'm going to fucking kill you. I'm like, no, he's the one that he started it. I didn't. Phil never believed me. He never believed me.
Because he knew that if Ringo started talking about the Beatles, he was going to get emotional and get
or get angry. I don't know. I don't know what he was going to do, So, and so, we were making that record, and Mark Hudson was one of the background singers. And then he says, there's a limited edition Ringo print at this store in Brentwood. It's $850. You should get it and get a Sharpie and get him to sign it. So I drove over there, $850. This is 91 or 2. I mean, those years were pretty nuts. I was working with everybody. I don't know how I packed all this in. Now my brain is kind of, wow. So anyway, I went and bought it, and I got the Sharpie, and I put it in the trunk of my car. And I thought, I can't ask him to sign it.
How do you ask Ringo to sign something? I mean, okay, go ahead.
I just didn't want to do it. I just didn't want to be that guy, because now got to the point where I was grabbing him and giving him a noogie, grabbing the top of his head, and
I love it.
Yeah, we were just like 2 little 13-year-olds hanging and having a great time. He's a lovely, lovely man. And so it was September, and it was super hot, and we were wearing those stupid MC Hammer pants, those kind of parachute Alibaba pants with the elastic top, right? Super wide. That was the thing then. And Ringo goes, oh, I wish I had some of those. All I bought was me fall clothes. And so Okay, so that happened. So one weekend, I go up to Zuma, go to the beach, and on the way back, there's a van on the side selling clothes. And they're selling the beach pants. And I said to myself, something you don't say to yourself a lot. I think I'll stop and get Ringo some beach pants. So I stopped. And of course, I got to get the little boys size.
Oh,
I'm trying to judge, like, okay, I guess is this the boys? Okay. So I buy 5 pair of these beach pants for Ringo. Right. So I show up at Westlake for the session, and there's Phil. And I walk in and Ringo goes, "Hey, how was your weekend?" I said, "Oh, you know what to do." "Oh, hang on, I got something for you." So I ran to the car, came back with a 5 pair of beach pants. And he goes, "You got these for me?" I said, "Yeah, I thought you said the beach pants." He goes, "Oh," and his lip starts quivering again, and he starts crying again. I hug him. Who walks in?
Phil Ramone.
Ramone. He goes, "What the fuck are you doing with my artist? Why do you make him cry all the time?" I said, "We're fine." And Ringo goes, "He's fine, he's fine." And Ringo goes, "If there's ever anything I can do for you." And I go,
No.
"Yeah, there is something." I went to the car. I brought this thing. We went in the lounge at Westlake, and we rolled it out, put 4 ashtrays on it. And it's a picture of the first Beatles session. And he goes, "Do you mind if I tell you a story about this?" And I said, "Fuck you, sign it." And now Ramone's ready to kill me. And Ringo started laughing. He got it. I was just kidding.
Of
Go ahead.
course.
So Ringo tells this whole story. He goes, "You see, George's head is turned sideways. He's got a black eye. He got in a fight the night before." And John is so angry, and he was ready. And this is their first session. And the photographer doesn't even know who they are. You know what I mean? And so they've got Ringo. He should be sitting at the drums. He's sitting like this way so they can see the band. It like where the hi-hat should be. It looks normal when you look at it, but once he explains it, you go, "Okay, that's completely fucked up the way he's sitting." And on the floor tom, there's maracas and a tambourine sitting on the floor tom. I said, "Why would you have those sitting on your tambourine?" He goes, "Oh, I didn't put them there. Just before they took the photo, the photographer ran up and said, 'These will make him look more intelligent.'" So then he wrote "To CJ with love," Ringo. He doesn't sign anything anymore. So.
Wow. Okay. So
Yeah.
speaking of pants and rock stars,
Uh-oh.
I heard you tell a story.
Oh,
So
boy.
it just so happens that about 2 weeks before he passed, I got to see Jeff Beck again.
Mhm.
And it was one of the greatest shows I've ever seen in my life.
Transcendent.
He had
Transcendent.
he had the best time. He was all right. So you have a Jeff Beck story.
I have, I don't even know what to say. So this would have been 81. I had just moved to Chicago. I'd yet to start doing sessions, and I was in this rock band called Trillion. It was a pretty high end. They called us the Toto of Chicago, which was a big compliment.
Wow.
And we got asked to open for Jeff Beck down in Carbondale, Illinois.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is like the biggest thing I've ever done in my life. So we drive down to Carbondale, and Jeff Beck does a sound check. And then, of course, the backup band gets the crumbs. We go out there for, we get a half an hour to do our sound check. So now we open the concert we're set up in front of their set. And there's Jeff Beck.
Are you a huge, I'm a Jeff Beck maniac fan. Are you a fan when this is going on?
Oh my God.
Oh God.
He's up there with Beethoven. Are you
Yeah.
kidding me?
Yeah.
No, there's no finer musician has ever walked the planet,
Yeah.
in my opinion. So anyway, we played our set. We got to, oh God, I got a bird stuck in here. I've got a bird stuck in my house.
Oh no.
Yep.
How do you get in there? How do you get stuck in there?
I've got sliding doors all around my house.
Oh.
Hang on, ladies and gentlemen. We open all the doors and get this bird out.
Oh. We're about to hear a Jeff Beck story. And then, and CJ, it's getting close to 6 o'clock and I'm going to honor our time. So after Jeff Beck, I'm going to let you go. After you get the bird out. You can't even hear me because you're walking around your house somewhere. People are sending up love. You're getting a lot of hearts before you go. Where are you? This is like bird salvage. We can't hear you. I lost
Coming back.
part of my thing. And by
Yeah,
the way, I
so-
have to say that I met
Okay.
CJ because Nicole Venables dresses our hair. I don't know if I said that.
You did start with that.
I did start with that. Okay. All right. So
So-
tell us the story.
So I've opened the whole kitchen up and closed the doors in between to see if this bird can get out. So,
Oh,
yeah, I don't want to freak it out. So this happens a lot. My whole house opens up on both sides, all glass. So
fabulous.
sometimes I get birds in here. Crap. Anyway, so Jeff Beck. So now Jeff Beck starts the concert and it's just mind blowing. We're sitting at the front of house console on some folding chairs watching. Oh my God. And he's about 5 or 6 songs in and I got to pee. I've got the notoriously the world's worst bladder. And I'm holding in. I'm sitting there like, oh God, I got to pee. But I can't leave because I'm listening to Jeff Beck. Miraculously, drum solo. So here's Simon Phillips going. Lights are flashing. So this is back in the day when the PA started at the floor, stacked up, right? And this will come into play in the story. So I got my backstage pass. I go right by the PA and show the guy my pass. Went back to our dressing room, take a leak. I come back and the drums are still, and I go behind the PA cabinet where the audience can't see, and there's a cooler. I grab a beer, take a sip, and there's Jeff Beck, literally 8 feet above me, right there, smoking a cigarette, where nobody can see him. He's got his back to the audience, back to the PA cabinet, but he's right there, 8 feet above me, and he can't see me because the lights are flashing, and I can't believe it. And again, the drums are. He takes a cigarette, drops it, goes to step on it. There's nothing there. He falls to the cement in front of me. Jeff Beck falls 8 feet to the cement in front of me. I'm the only person there. And I'm 22 years old. I can't. And I ran over and I go, Mr. Beck, Mr. Beck, and he's writhing in pain, rolling on the floor. Mr. Beck, are you okay, Mr. Beck? Sir Beck, are you all right? And he rolls
Sir
over.
Beck.
I didn't know what to say. And he rolls over and he goes, I ripped my fucking pants. And I could tell he'd been drinking.
Oh.
That's probably what saved his life.
Right. Because he rolled into it. Right.
He does, yeah. And so his pants are ripped from the crotch all the way down to the knee. And he's basically jiffy popping, you know. So just how you don't want to see a nice way to meet your hero, right?
Yeah.
So I go, are you okay? And he goes, yeah, but I ripped my fucking pants. And I go, okay. So I pick him up with this adrenaline, grab him. And the minute I grab him, I go, oh my God, he's exactly my fucking size. He's exactly the same size.
Jeff is like a skinny mother. Are you that skinny?
I'm skinny.
You.
I'm that skinny. Yeah, I'm a skinny
Wow.
guy. I got my dad's talent and my mom's legs is what I like to say. So anyway, so now I'm doing the hobbling with him, and now the drums are still going. So now the roadies are looking for Jeff. They run backstage. They think I'm kidnapping him or something. And he goes, no, he's okay. And I said, tell Simon to stretch the drum solo. So the drum roadie walks up and does the rubber band thing. And Simon's like, he doesn't know what's going on. He's like, well, I'm killing it. He says, oh, yeah, okay, sure. So get Jeff back to my dressing room. And I had a wardrobe
This is
trunk.
one long drum solo.
Oh, my God. Yeah. So I grab a pair of pants and I hand it to Jeff. I turn around and he's standing in his BVDs. And he must have had this underwear since he was 15 years old. They were like yellow, just like worn out. It's like just how you don't, and with the skin legs like mine sticking out. I'm like, oh, and I handed him the pants. Like, I don't want to look at him. And he goes, I ain't wearing no fucking purple pants. And I go, wow, you talk about beggars being choosers. Really? And he had on these black satin pants. And I went, oh shit. I reached way back in my wardrobe trunk. I had a pair of black, kind of like almost identical, crazy. He puts them on, and then he turns around and does the, how's my ass look in the pants thing? He goes like, how do they look? I go, you look good, you look good. Great. So now the roadie's taken. I'm putting my clothes away and I hear, and I go, oh my God, Jeff Beck is playing in my fucking pants right now. You've got to be kidding me. So I can't wait to get out and tell the band, run all the way up there. The band's sitting behind the console. The minute I get there, one of the guys in the band looks at me and goes, where the fuck did you go? you just missed the greatest drum solo of all time.
I fucking
And
love
I
it.
go, no. I got a little story for you guys. You see those pants? He's
Wow.
wearing my fucking pants right now. Unbelievable.
Wow.
So Jeff threw a big party for me after the show, and we became friends. And I got him on the Spinal Tap record, and then on the Joe Cocker
Wow.
record. Yeah.
Wow, what a great story. Oh my God. CJ, all right, I could listen to you all night long, but I'm gonna honor it. I know you have a 6:15 dinner and you're gonna make it. You're gonna have to run, but you're gonna
don't worry. I can go. If you got another question, I can do another one. That's okay.
All right. Well, all right. So my last question. So tell me about Toto and Luke and that whole thing.
That's a good way to close it. I have no higher respect for any musicians ever than that group of guys. And when I heard those records, first of all, I love Lukather's playing, and Jeff Porcaro is the greatest drummer, studio musician that ever lived, in my opinion. But David Paich and Steve Porcaro as a pair of keyboard players, Paich has got all the New Orleans blues. He's got that style of piano that he does, and he plays the B3, that rootsy kind of stuff. And he's the writer. And then there's Steve Porcaro, mad scientist with his modular synths and everything like that. And I thought, I want to be right down the middle of those two guys. So I became a scholar of Toto. I learned everything, all their songs. And matter of fact, I showed up at one of their rehearsals and they were playing Child's Anthem. And I walked over to Paich. I said, I think you're playing that wrong. He goes, what? And I sat down and played the whole thing. He goes, we are playing it wrong. He goes, when's the last time you played that song? I said, that would have been 33 years ago. I've got this kind of photographic memory. So
wow.
Anyway, I ended up meeting them through Greg Ladani. I was doing the Dolly Parton record and he was producing Toto also. And they heard some of the tracks and said, who's this guy on these tracks? And Luke knew. I had been working with Luke. And I played on King of Desire. And then I remember I was on a David Crosby record. And I walked in and Don was producing, and there's this set of drums. I said, who's the drummer? He goes, Jeff. I go, Porcaro? He goes, yeah. I'm like, holy shit. My first session with Jeff Porcaro. Door opens, he walks in. The coolest dude ever. James Bond of drums walks in, he goes, CJ fucking Vanston. Let's see what all the fuss is about. I go, no, dude, don't do that to me. Don't. So we get this take going, and Don wants it perfectly in time on the piano with no click in the intro. One of the things I got from doing all those jingles is time, because we always played the click. So a lot of keyboard players push to me, they rush and stuff. I've got really good time. If I have anything, I've got really good time. So I play the intro, and Jeff's drums are facing me, and now we get into the take. Well, what he doesn't know is I'm a fucking scholar of David Paich. He doesn't know that. And I know his groove. He doesn't know that. And he's looking at me. He's giving me like the Gene Krupa, and we did this take together. It was just, we're locked in, just completely locked. We got done. Don says, that was great take. And David Crosby was singing. And he says, why don't you come in and listen? Jeff spins around on his drum stool, lights up a cigarette, turns around, and I'm waiting. I'm just shaking. I'm waiting for him to, walks right by me and walks out of the room without saying a word. I thought, how the fuck would he walk out of the room? Count to 10. Door opens up. He comes right over, he grabs me. You motherfucker. Oh my God, you're me. Come on. And we went in and listened. And we're listening to playback, and he takes his watch off. He's got that old Casio with all the buttons on it. And the intro is going by, and he's going, boom, boom. And I said, it was a timer. I said, what are you doing? What are you doing? He goes, checking you out, motherfucker. I said, how am I doing? He goes, that's as close as anyone's ever gotten it. You want to smoke a joint?
Wow.
So we went outside, and we were both in the Civil War, and we talked about the Civil War, smoked a joint. He got in his car and drove away. I never saw him again. Never worked with him again. Never saw him again. He died soon after that. So anyway, Luke was doing a solo album. This is way after that. And he called me to write something together, and we wrote something in, an hour that was great. And he goes, well, maybe you should put some other keyboards on. So I started overdubbing on this whole album. It was called All's Well That Ends Well. And I saw him, we went to the Hollywood Bowl together. On the way, we were in his Porsche, and he says, you want to hear some of the mixes? I said, yeah. He put them on, and I go, what the hell this sounds like dog shit. What's going on? And the engineer had put my keyboards through like guitar amps and stuff and distorted it. I go, no, this is awful. And I happen to have he happened to have, I said, do you have the original demo? He goes, yeah, it's right there. He put it on. I mean, it exploded out of the speakers. And he slowed down. He goes, you're producing my record. And so I produced that record, All's Well That Ends Well. I mixed it because I had learned from Greg Ladani and Ed Cherney and Chris Lord-Alge and Al Schmidt. And he asked me to do his second. The one after that was called Transition. I'm as proud of that as anything I've ever done.
Wow.
And the guys in Toto heard that. And I saw David Page at a party, and he came over and he goes, I want you to help us do our Sgt. Pepper's. And that was the Toto record I produced. So we had a meeting, and there's the band sitting there. And I go, guys, I'm flattered to be here. And, I need to know what you want me to do on this record. And Page put his hands on both of my shoulders and goes, we want you to do everything. And I go, I know how to do that. And that became that record, 10 months of working on that record. And to me, Toto, after Toto 4, went down a kind of a different, I don't know, it was a different vibe. It got kind of mythical, gothic, with some of the stuff got jazzy, kind of baked potato-y and stuff. It was, great music, but it wasn't how I thought of Toto. I said, guys, I want to get back to the sound of Toto 4. So they said, and we did. And everyone said, this is going to be called Toto 5 is what we're going to call it. And someone looked up and they realized this was their 14th record. So Toto 4, Toto 14. They had never named another one a Roman numeral. So they named Toto 14 out of the honor of this is the closest we've gotten to Toto 4 again. And we did that record, and it's one of the highest honors of my entire life.
Wow. All right.
And by the way, all because I didn't shave my beard. Okay.
I was going to ask you about this, and we're gonna close on this.
Yep.
I assume that you do believe in destiny and fate, and
I do,
and that things happen for a reason.
Clearly, in the universe, 100%.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
And so the universe has in store for you. Denny Tedesco couldn't be a greater person to collaborate with. So you guys have something in the hopper, and but I hear there's like a Spinal Tap thing that.
Yeah, we're making a new movie in September. and by the way, everyone says, oh, you're doing the Spinal Tap sequel. And I said, no, it's actually called the finale.
Wow. Because
they're never going to do it again. This is it. So, and it's brilliant. They've been writing, and I've been hearing about what they're doing. It's absolutely brilliant. So.
Well, I, for one, cannot wait for everything you've got cooking. CJ, Caucasian Jeff, it has been my great pleasure and fun to spend this time with you. Thank you so much. Well,
you're very welcome. I know I go on and on with these stories, but I've been very fortunate to work with many artists, but I never did this for the money. It's the experiences, and I've lived more than anybody could ever ask for in my life. I've had great experiences, and I cherish those. And I truly believe that's what makes you a musician, is your experiences and knowing yourself and creating a sound and a voice from that. These kids come out of college, they're amazing players, but you got to live, you got to go, so anyway. It's that thing with Barbra Streisand going, it's all about 100%. That. It doesn't matter if you can shred. It doesn't matter if you can play all the fucking notes. It's making somebody go. If I can make Barbra Streisand cry, I've done something for the world. There you go. That's my closer. Have a wonderful dinner. Thanks so much, CJ. Great. You're awesome. I love doing this. It was great. I'm so glad. Thank you. Take care. Bye.